Good evening, everybody. This is Solomon Lee, sending his greetings from the desert. Majestic, isn't it? Recently, with all the quarantine lockdowns, there's been a lack of things to do, I suppose. People are finding different ways, maybe more traditional ways of keeping themselves occupied. Of course, as a practicing ascetic, aka a priest of some sorts, it doesn't actually affect me all that differently. I spend a lot of time in silent or private reflection, or I'll be musing over my life as part of self-cultivation. But recently, my hobbies have taken me to woodcutting, because I'll be honest with you, I like burning things within reason. I think that statement itself seems to draw some alarm from certain people, but for the most part, fire, it speaks to a person. It's part of the ancestral, primordial imagery. Can you imagine what it was like before the age of mobile phones and electricity, when everyone was a lot more supernaturally inclined? And as a result, just having something warm and something bright to huddle around at night, I'm sure it would stoke the imaginations. I figured that while I'm out here in the desert, I would try to keep myself in shape, and woodcutting is quite a workout. It's a fun workout which probably would be more popular than CrossFit if, urban centers actually had places where you could cut down trees. Out here in the desert, there's plenty of wilderness, and although I am surrounded by national parks, I think I've located the areas where I won't get in trouble if I were to fell a few trees. Most of the time, though, I actually find dead trees I just chop up and take back. That way I can produce beautiful fires, as you can see. Wonderful, isn't it? But yes, I suppose the point of this video was an introduction to story time with Solomon. I'm sure I can think of a catchier title, but story time with Solomon. A chance to discuss old tales, or for me to retell some life stories, and that way we can all, figuratively, gather around the fire and listen, share our experiences and stories. For me, this is quite nice. It's wonderfully pleasant out here. The trees, the air, the fire, for instance. Not the insects, though. I don't like the insects out here. There's a lot more of them, for instance, and the flies are incessant. Friendly is the local term, so when you say the flies are friendly, it means that they are undeterred by your attempts to shoo them away from your face, which I suppose makes sense. Your face is full of different orifices and locales of moisture, oil, and if you're not particularly neat during your meal times, sustenance. That's quite a gross imagery, I suppose, but yeah. Essentially, being out here brings me back to a simpler time. It's a funny thing I should note. This area I'm in is in a pocket time zone of its own. It doesn't actually, it's I think a time zone that extends a mere 300 kilometers in radius. And as a result, I feel like I'm in my own private pocket dimension. Especially because my job is working at the quarantine checkpoint, so I'm basically involved as a gatekeeper, letting people in and out of the state, but more specifically, regulating this time zone. And the fire, wonderful, isn't it? Yes, anyhow, story time with Solomon. I think that as the winter months continue to roll in, and this quarantine lockdown is preventing me from traveling anywhere, I'm going to start a storytelling session. I should note that I've been breaking a lot of these the woods and sticks and branches I've found by hand, or just with a bit of leverage and exertion, simply because no one around here has an axe I can use, and it's really I was really disappointed because I wanted to start woodcutting straight away, just go out to an area, start hacking at some logs or boughs or trees, but I've got to wait until this Friday, so 4 more days, when my order from the closest town arrives. I would have actually traveled there because 500 kilometers isn't actually that far if you think about how distant and remote this town is. But at the same time, with the quarantine lockdowns and isolation in place, I wouldn't be allowed to move about as I would, even though I'm a government employee, and I probably could get some leeway if I was traveling around. But that's all for now. I wanted to just introduce the concept of story time and share with you this beautiful, seductive fire. See you next time, everybody.